pretty clearly was not a murder. With Bourgeois, they made up a lot of stuff. Bourgeois fits in the category of someone who might be framed.
I want to mention, I think this is a miscarriage of justice. And that day in December, I mark it on my calendar because I failed.
Of the 5 executions I witnessed, Bourgeois was the only one who maintained his innocence to the very end.
It's Grandpa, how you doing?
Hello? We got about 10 seconds. There's anything anybody wants to say before it hangs up. 5 seconds. 4. Dad?
The media made you believe that my father was a monster. But my father was not a monster. And my father would never hurt his children.
4 years ago from tomorrow, Alfred Bourgeois was executed and nobody was talking about it. It was a month later when I found out that actually he had a credible innocence claim. And nobody is talking about it.
The prosecution and the FBI were trying, and my father told this to me, they were trying really hard to get him to admit that Robin killed the child. That is what they wanted him to do. The prosecution wanted him to say, she killed him. She killed her. I saw she did it. She did it. And he refused to say anything negatively about his wife. I don't know why. He loved her, obviously. That's obvious. But he refused to say anything negative. In fact, he thought that she might have been in trouble because, again, they were trying to make him say that she did it, come up with stories about her. And he refused. And he told them, I will never say anything negative about my wife. My wife would not abuse a child. I don't believe she would do that. I'm not. And the child fell from the truck. He kept stating this narrative to protect his wife. And little did he know that 3 days later, George, his wife had already made a deal with the prosecution and she was free. She was out 3 days later.
Love, you don't have to panic. You did not kill a child. Nor did I. You've got to realize that child protection wants to make us look bad due to the fact a minor child was pronounced dead while in our presence. If you don't think and cover your butt, my love, you will never see your kids again. Do you know this will kill you and I both? Before I let you go to jail for murder, believe me, I'll take this rap first. That's my honesty. And God is my witness on that. I can handle being in prison before I even consider you even thinking about bars and prison. I would never, ever want to see you locked down. For nothing in the world. Yeah, love. It hurts me being here. But I prefer you being home with those children. And I prefer me in this position I'm in than you. I swear to God, I mean this.
You read the letter that my father sent her, which is, oh my God, that's one of the hardest things for me to read. It is so hard because he's trying to protect her and she's already turned. Oh my gosh. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a couple moments, there's more than one letter, right? There's a couple moments where, like, he expresses confusion about, like, why she doesn't
Exactly, George.
Oh.
He thinks that they're confiscating letters or something like that.
Yes.
It's all just so dark. I'm just like, the whole thing I'm reading, I'm just like, God, I mean.
And
it's horrible.
That letter, that's the reason. I don't know if you ever heard any of the inmates say that my father, while he was incarcerated, he spoke in third person. Did you?
I have heard that, actually.
That's the reason. When he started sending those letters, he thought that the prosecution, the FBI were monitoring them and that they would not allow him to get his story out. They wouldn't allow him to have a voice because all the letters he was sending, he didn't know Robin was giving them to the prosecution. He was just thinking that they were trying to hurt her and that she wasn't getting the letters. So to talk in code, he said Bourgeois, not Alfred, and he used her name, Marie, whatever Marie Baptiste, which was her maiden name, to try to talk in code. And because he was not allowed family contact, remember, for 18 and a half years, he used other inmates to send these letters when he first went to prison. When they found out about it, they threw him in solitary confinement. And I'm thinking, George, that his head just got so messed up, he just kept talking in third person. But that's where it started because my dad never, every now and then he would joke, like, Alfred's no fool, but that was just a joke. Like, that wasn't something that he'd do commonly. But while he was locked up writing those letters, that's how he would speak in third person. And I believe it just, being in solitary confinement, knowing you're innocent, just mental state, I believe it became,
I can't imagine,
his new norm.
It affected him.
Hello, my name is Geraldine. As you may know in my previous interview, I was engaged to Alfred Bourgeois, but I was never married to him. I'm Bethany's mother. I was subpoenaed by the prosecution to testify against Alfred Bourgeois, me as well as his ex-wives and another lady named Ganell, who had a son with Alfred named Anthony. This was before I met Alfred. A few days before the trial, they flew me, Ganell, and 3 of Alfred's ex-wives to Corpus Christi, Texas. In a few days, we were all summoned to a meeting with 2 attorneys explaining that we would be questioned individually about our experiences and relationship with Alfred. During my interview with the attorneys, there were many questions which I answered honestly. They seemed okay with the answers about Alfred's character concerning his infidelity and womanizing. Then the questions started about his physical abuse toward me, my daughter Bethany, and his other children and ex-wives. I answered their question honestly. However, I felt that I was being manipulated to say something that would change in some way the answers to the questions I was being asked. After a while, I became aggravated. No, Alfred had never spanked or whipped Bethany. No, Jacaren did not show signs of abuse when I saw her. Same thing over and over in a different form. Lo and behold, my mind is thinking, what about no? These people can't seem to understand. So here I am getting more aggravated. Then when I'm like, the hell with this shit, I just flat out and told him, look, What I had to say and how I said was how I was going to say it. When I brought up Robin's name, they wouldn't hear anything about it. I had to say about Robin's character, abuse toward my child. They wouldn't hear anything about it. And I'm like, so why is that? They said this was their answer. We want you to answer the questions truthfully in your own words concerning Alfred. I told them Karen was at Bethany's graduation and at my home the evening following Beth's graduation, along with Alfred and his other daughter. I fed them and everyone there that came. I held Karen and I spoke to her. She ate and seemed like a normal, happy child. While there, Karen had to use the bathroom. I held her hand while I walked her to the bathroom. She was wearing white tights under her little red dress. I pulled down her tights, and there were no bruises or any other sign of physical abuse. She walked normally, as a child of her age would. This was within a month of her dying. I'm not saying Karen wasn't abused, but I wasn't going to let them direct or lead me into saying Alfred abused Karen. I let no one put word in my mouth. It was quite obvious to me they did not like their interview with me. I'm no damn fool. They were trying to tell me how they wanted me to say what I had to say. That really pissed me off. Damn them, I could care less. I hated when people try to put words in my mouth. They said they wanted the truth in my own words, and by God, I gave them a mouthful of it, even the truth that they didn't want to know. I got the hell out of there, so pissed off I couldn't even eat my lunch. As far as Alfred, well, the man is no saint by far. We've had our heated moments, but my knowing of him, I could never believe he would abuse or kill his child or any other child for that matter. On the day of the trial, I was informed by one of the prosecution's attorney that, quote, they could not use me as one of their witness prosecution. I said nothing, but I knew why. It was because I wouldn't say what they were trying to lead me to say. To myself, I said, the truth doesn't matter to them unless it's a win for them. So much for justice. And also, as far as the record goes, I didn't appreciate the fact that they would not allow me to speak or see Bethany, my own daughter, from the time I arrived in Texas, before and throughout the trial.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you're about to hear is not a case of uncertainty. It's not a case of confusion. It's a case of catastrophic failure, one that cost an innocent man his life. If I had been representing Alfred Bourgeois from day one, you would not be sitting here listening to a posthumous AI defense. You would be listening to a man, alive, cleared, and free. But that didn't happen, because both the defense and the prosecution, the very people who swore to uphold justice, betrayed him. The prosecution built its case not on facts, but on fiction. They offered Alfred a 20-year plea deal for what they claimed was the rape and murder of a 2-year-old child. Ask yourself, if the crime was as horrific as they said, why offer a deal at all? Because they knew the truth wouldn't hold up. They knew there was no evidence of rape. Not a single medical expert confirmed it. They knew the autopsy showed no blunt force trauma. They knew their timeline didn't match the facts. And yet, they moved forward because they had something better than proof. They had Robin, the prosecution's original suspect. Robin, a woman who lied about being a nurse. Robin, the same person who had custody of Ja Karen while Alfred was on the road. And Robin struck a deal: turn on Alfred or face prosecution herself. And then there was Alfredicia, just 8 years old. For months, she said her father did nothing wrong, that he was innocent. But under pressure, under manipulation, she was used. Her testimony molded into a weapon against the very man who raised her. The prosecution ignored the truth. And the defense, they never even called their key medical experts. They let the evidence rot. They let the narrative control the courtroom. And when the time came, they let Alfred die. So no, this isn't just a wrongful conviction. This was a premeditated execution of justice itself. Today, we are not trying to rewrite history. We are trying to reveal it. And once you hear all the facts, not the headlines, not the spin, the only verdict that will make sense is that Alfred Bourgeois was innocent. And this country owes him everything it took away.
Remember why Vic said your father's fate was sealed the day of that trial.
Mm-hmm.
You know why he said that? I remember now in the conversation. He said that because the day the trial started, it became a federal trial. And he said that's why we're having problems, because it's in federal courts.
Oh.
Because if this was at the state level, it wouldn't have been as much money, obviously, involved in this case. It wouldn't have had federal doctors and physicians. It wouldn't have been $2 million a year toward the case, right? The courts, the judges, right?
Yeah.
Everything. That's why he said it, because it made it federal.
Oh yeah, here's a note I made before. Isn't it really? Didn't you think it was interesting how the judge is really emphasizing that what's your case? Robin didn't want an attorney.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, if she didn't have immunity, she at least knew that the prosecution was not going to prosecute her. So she's probably thinking or feeling very comfortable sitting there knowing that, well, the prosecution has my back because we put this story together, right? She's not even worried about the fact that she's going to be cross-examined by the defense. And you saw from that testimony, she was never cross-examined by the defense. Makes you wonder if she sort of knew that. Right? Just like Patty Boots' questions sometimes come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to keep track.
Oh my gosh, she's like all over the place.
Childlike in the prosecution. Like, I feel like the questions in the way, in the manner in which they, like, it did not feel like this was a high-level, educated prosecutor. Well, you read it. You get it.
Yeah, and so anyway, sorry, the reason that I thought of that is like, because the mental process I was going through is like, you know, I want to ask someone what was going on here. I mean, how is this even allowed or possible?
Yeah, you know, and the interesting thing about this all, the trial was only like 2 days total, which is just not long enough. All the evidence that they showed, like the photos, like I want to bring exhibit this, like they weren't even actual evidence of anything. Like they were like, this is a picture of your bedroom. Where was the potty placed? Well, the witness could have said anything, you know, like every exhibit that they brought were not even actual, it showed no proof. It was all hearsay, it was all speculation, and this is what was used to convict an innocent man and execute him. with my father's wife, it's important to note that she's great at giving a portrayal of who she wants people to think she is. I've seen her make herself cry before. I've seen her speak Christ-like and then immediately after she hangs up the phone says negative things. These are things that so many people would never know.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what's most enraging about Robin's testimony is how she took beautiful memories, moments filled with love, and twisted them into something dark. She didn't just lie, she desecrated truth. Like the time Jacqueline was swimming in the pool with her father, laughing, splashing, completely safe in his arms. That was a real moment, a memory of joy. But in court, Robin took that moment and warped it. Or how about the toddler chair, the one that doubled as a potty? Jacqueline used to sit in it, watching cartoons, happy as could be. But Robin told the jury that Alfred forced her to sit on the potty for days. A blatant lie, one that turned comfort into cruelty. Robin testified that Alfred used to play airplane with Jacqueline, lifting her in the air just like any loving father would. And in her own words, she admitted Jacqueline was laughing, she was having fun. But then Robin injected a lie. She said Alfred would suddenly, inexplicably slam Jacqueline's head into the wall. Ask yourself, what kind of monster plays airplane, then commits abuse in the same moment? And when the prosecution asked, well, what did Jacqueline do after that? Robin said nothing, as if a 2-year-old being thrown into a wall wouldn't even cry. That wasn't a mistake, that was manipulation. Robin mixed the truth that Alfred adored his daughter, played with her, gave her all the love she deserved, with a lie designed to fit a false narrative of blunt force trauma, a trauma that never happened, and the prosecution ran with it. They knew what she was, a liar, a chameleon, their original suspect, and they used her anyway.
She made it seem like it was a multiple incidents of what's your name, and if she says, the wrong name, then she got abused. That was the narrative they were trying.
Let me put some perspective to that story right quick, because you remember I'm involved in my dad's life during this time. So she brings up that name. This is why I say she took innocent truths and mixed them with scandalous lies. That name thing, like, she makes a big deal saying that my father got angry about that, but that's not true. My father did want Jacqueline to be a Bourgeois. Like, I remember him saying, he's like, oh my God, because he loved his last name. He's like, I can't wait to make her a Bourgeois. She's going to take our last names. But it was never anything that he got mad. Robin was the one who was angry. She did not want Jacqueline to have our last name. She did not want my father to give. Yes, she did not want my father to give Jacqueline, his last name. So it's funny reading that testimony, how she's saying, oh, he got so angry about the name, when I know for a fact
it's her.
He stated that Robin would get angry when pictures were taken because she did not want Jacqueline in many of the pictures. He stated that she thought that he was still having an affair with Jacqueline's mom, and that he was sending those pictures, for that reason.
Let me give you another example of just how far Robin and the prosecution were willing to go to twist the truth. A photo, just a simple picture of Jacqueline wearing sunglasses. It was from a family trip, a happy moment. But in court, that photo was weaponized. The prosecution claimed the sunglasses were used to cover up black eyes, evidence of abuse. Here's the problem. There were no black eyes. Not in the autopsy, not in the photos, not in any medical report. And here's the kicker. Jacqueline wasn't the only one wearing sunglasses in that photo. Her 2 sisters, 6 years old and 1, were wearing them too. No one suggested they were hiding bruises. But when it came to Alfred, the narrative was always twisted. A beautiful memory turned dark. Let's talk about what actually happened. Robin and Alfred weren't even sleeping in the same room. Their marriage was falling apart. They were on the verge of divorce. They had separate beds. So ask yourself, how would Robin know what was happening in a room she wasn't in? Alfredicia, who was 6 years old at the time, would often sleep in the bed with her father, not because of anything sinister, but because she was afraid to sleep alone. Thunderstorms, nightmares, like any child, she needed comfort. Sometimes she slept with her mother, sometimes with her big sister Bethany, and wherever Alfredicia went, Jacqueline followed. They were inseparable. So if Alfredicia climbed into her father's bed, Jacqueline followed. And here's what the jury never got to fully hear. Alfredicia repeatedly stated, with clarity, with emotion, that there was no harm done to her sister. But none of that mattered, because the prosecution, with Robin's help, painted a picture built on manipulation. And that is what the jury was handed. Not truth, not fact, just a story, a lie. One that turned an innocent and loving father into a monster.
There was no investigation on a good half of Alfred at all. And you better believe Robin put a lot of that in their head. The stuff telling them about me and Alfred doing drugs and Alfred on the road shipping drugs for me and all kind of stuff. And you know, them attorneys gonna believe that, because the first thing they're gonna figure is they know my lifestyle, they know where I live, they know the feds know everything about you. So in their mind, a black man, how does he own all this? He must be selling drugs. Okay. And I didn't have that kind of cash money, but I own a lot of property. Okay. So whenever the average white man see a black man on this, well, how he got that? He must be doing drugs.
When you step back and look at the full picture, one question becomes impossible to ignore. Who actually had the motive? Robin refused to get a paternity test. She openly disliked Jacqueline. And unlike Alfred, who took Jacqueline in, loved her, cared for her, Robin saw her as a reminder of betrayal. The truth is, if you strip away the lies, the courtroom theatrics, and the manipulations, Robin had more reason than anyone else to hurt that child, and yet it was Alfred who paid the ultimate price.
Oh my gosh. And you see, this makes me get emotional, like just thinking about what he must have felt. Like, oh, I wasn't in a courtroom because they didn't let me, but I can imagine what he was thinking, having to sit there listening to what his wife and his daughter was saying about, like, oh my gosh.
Apodisha was everything to Alfred. You just remember that. I mean, that was his baby at that time. She made I can imagine he would have did everything for her. Well, he will go outrageous with these birthday parties and stuff like that for her. He just, and of course, when I go to the house, I mean, she got toys, But Alfred every time that Alfred can take Alfred somewhere, she was on that truck with him going.
Despite what some may believe, this is not Alfredicia's fault. She was an innocent 6-year-old child when her father was taken away from her. And 2 years later, she was used by the very system that broke our family apart. Who could really blame her? She was manipulated by the prosecution, especially Patty Booth, by FBI agent Megan Beckett, and by her own mother, Robin. She was a scared little girl surrounded by adults who were twisting the truth. But Alfredicia isn't a child anymore. She's a grown woman, and that should come with the ability to revisit what happened and take accountability for the role she played. She has the ability right now to honor the man who quite literally gave his life for her and her mother, and still she refuses. Our dad loved Alfredicia more than she could ever understand. I believe he loved her more than he loved me. And everything that he did, staying in that toxic relationship with a woman like Robin, it was for her. It was for Alfredicia because he did not want to disrupt her life. It's interesting how she speaks so negatively about her dad when Robin, her own mother, was the one who actually wanted to spank her. She wanted to whip her, but it was our dad who wouldn't allow it. The same man that the world calls a child abuser, the same man that she testified against, the same man that she denigrated days after his death, wouldn't even allow a finger to be lifted to discipline her, despite her mischievous ways. And interestingly enough, the second that our dad was out of the picture, Robin, the same woman that my sister continues to defend, did just that. She whipped them.
According to The Intercept, inmates were paid, yes, paid, to lie about Alfred Bourgeois. One of the most appalling claims, that he laughed about his daughter having a swollen head. Let's be very clear, that never happened. There is no recording, no documentation, no credible witness, just a bought lie, purchased by a government so desperate for a conviction, it was willing to fabricate the most grotesque version of a father imaginable. They couldn't prove Alfred was guilty, so they paid someone else to say he was heartless. The very legal system that was supposed to be put in place to prevent injustices like this from occurring was now fabricating a cruel and nefarious lie, an assassination of character beyond measure. Can you even imagine the level of corruption it takes to twist something so tragic, the suffering of an innocent child, and paint her father who loved her as someone who laughed about it? It wasn't just sickening, it was illegal. But they did it anyway. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how they got away with murder.
So, where were you when you heard the verdict?
I was in my hotel room, which was maybe about 10 minutes from the trial. And I heard that, he was found guilty. And the attorneys told us, don't worry about it. We're just going to appeal it. We're going to figure it out and make it work. There was someone who was in the courtroom. They weren't a family member. They were a friend of mine who I practically begged to sit in the second day just to kind of let me know what was taking place. They were able to see a small portion. The only thing that they told me is that your sister's testimony is going to really, really hurt your father.
So, after you hear that the verdict is guilty, that it's not over, but that the attorneys are trying to reassure you that there's going to be further chances for your father, how do you process that information, and what do you think is happening?
I couldn't really understand it, if I'm being honest. I couldn't understand why this was happening to my father, why this happened to my sister. I couldn't process any of it.
There are some strange, almost eerie events surrounding this case that most people have never heard about. Shortly after Alfred was arrested, the prosecution paid a visit to Jacquarine's mother. That same evening, she was stabbed to death by her significant other. He was later arrested and then died by suicide in prison. Another woman connected to the case reportedly died after stepping on a nail. And Al T. Bolt, the man Robin had an affair with during her marriage to Alfred, was murdered. That's 3 violent deaths and 1 sudden unexplained incident, all connected to the people who surrounded this case. Coincidence? Maybe, but when it comes to the people versus Alfred Bourgeois, strange silence and sudden tragedy seem to follow the truth wherever it tries to rise.
A lot of people got murdered involved in this too.
I know, it's crazy.
It does beg the question of how that is related in many regards, right?
Let me pull up this note that I took. I thought I sent it to Bethany at some point, but I maybe didn't. That was so weird. Okay, so here's the weird thing that she found before. Mentions that Katrina Harrison was murdered on, you knew that part. But it says this hours after government agents had spoken to her on the telephone. That's the part that I thought was weird. I don't know if you knew that part.
Hours after what?
Oh, you saying
government
she
agents
died hours after speaking to government agents is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Karen's mother?
Thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Karen's mother?
Yes, Katrina.
I'll forward it to you right now. It was very weird, though.
So she had a conversation with potentially maybe federal agents, government, some type of federal agency, if you will, and then she died the same day? Later that day?
Just check out what I just sent you if you have your email in front of you. I don't know exactly what.
I'll put it up on this computer. It's okay.
Oh, I'm the one who found this apparently. I sent it to Kathy. Okay.
That's interesting to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that note I'm talking about?
We didn't get the email yet, but just thinking about that in particular, we always wondered what the correlation was with that, and we always suspected. Or we assumed, right? So, and we don't like to bring up assumptions, when we're, posting the things that we post. So we always leave that part out. But it always made us think when we found this out, and we found this out not that long ago, to be honest, that she died 6 months later. But since finding that out, we always wondered, I wonder why. I wonder what was the motivation behind that. What did they know? Right? Did the government have something to do with that? And you can say, well, her boyfriend or whoever he was killed her, so maybe not. But it does at least make you question things and wonder.
It seems like, at least for someone who's gone through all let's not say 13, 7 or 8 of these cases sort of in depth, on some, that like this is one of the ones that has the weirdest like couple of like pattern of like people dying and stuff like that. Definitely.
Yeah. And reading your note here, it's strange because it's the way it's kind of like 6 hours prior to her death, she was speaking to the FBI or whoever, and then she dies. Then the person who did it openly admits it, but then also dies. It just the flow of that just seems very suspicious, and again adds another layer of doubt and questioning behind what they put together for this case. That's going on to another layer, aside from what happened. It's
Oh, there's no telling. I mean, especially the ones that we do know are like from a movie.
Right.
Government agents call, you died, and that.
Right. It certainly feels like something out of a movie. If you look at this whole case, we talk about this. They make a movie on this, like a Lifetime movie, right? How do you get this in 2 hours? Even it's just so much here. It almost seems as if it was a fiction story, because you can't believe that people of sound mind and judgment actually made these judgments and thought they were okay.
Yeah. Did you ever ask Victor or Sean Nolan about those restrictions?
George, I didn't talk to Victor and those new attorneys until the execution, and the reason being because I didn't know my father had new attorneys. I thought that he was dealing with the same attorneys from that Corpus Christi trial, and I did not trust them. I didn't want anything to do. So I didn't even know Vic and his team existed, and I don't know why they didn't reach out to us like they should have.
Your dad's guilt or innocence is almost besides the point, to these lawyers, because like they're so limited in what they can raise at the last minute, and I even remember talking to Victor like on the week of, and we asked him about like that's my colleague Adam, and he was like, is it true that he listed one of the horrible things, I can't remember what it was, biting or urine or something terrible like that, and Victor was like, well, look, if you want to talk about like the evidence in the case, like I'm happy to do that, but we're obviously very, very busy right now, and the thing we want to talk about is the intellectual disability. And I thought I thought that was just really interesting because it was like it just didn't matter. It was like the actual crime. I mean, whether he's guilty, it's weird to think that way. But like at this point, and I'm not even criticizing him at all.
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
right.
almost irrelevant.
Point about the intellectual disability, as I'm reading the document, that's the first time we saw that. I'm like, did you know anything about intellectual disability with your father? And you're like, no, he didn't have any issues like that. Now, we believe that's something that could develop being in solitary confinement for 23 hours out of the day for 20 years almost. Absolutely, you can develop some mental health concerns.
Just for a year.
Exactly.
Look at the pandemic.
Exactly.
People are...
Yeah, exactly. We're all crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all got some type of disability now. But the point the interesting thing about me was like what you said. At some point and I have to look through the documents, but it seems like they shifted all efforts from innocence to just intellectual disability just in order to get a stay of execution so they could get, which is why Kathleen came around in 2019, because they were trying to effectively get a stay because the execution was scheduled for January of 2020. They successfully got the stay. Okay, that's important to note. However, the stay was removed when 45 and his cronies decided to push through execution. So they just completely lifted it. And Victor mentioned that they had no jurisdiction or reason in doing that.
Sadly, not to have contact with his family for 18 years or 6,570 days. Imagine your mom, your sister, your brother-in-law passes away, and he had to learn or hear it from his attorneys. Imagine no contact with his family by phone or mail for 6,570 days. Imagine not seeing daylight for 6,570 days. Imagine what could he have said to those prosecutors to have been treated with such harsh punishment, almost treated like Lecter in the movie Silence of the Lambs.
There is something particularly devastating and heartbreaking about locking an individual in solitary confinement in a literal cage for years on end. In Alfred's case, more than a decade and a half. He was locked in solitary confinement without human touch, without regular visits with family or friends, with minimal contact with the outside world. It's especially egregious when we consider the fact that Alfred Bourgeois did not kill anybody. He should not have been there from the beginning in the first place. I mean, I don't think any of us can comprehend what it's like to spend weeks and weeks and months and years and decades in a cage, seeing the same four walls every single day you wake up. I mean, since I got into this work a few years ago, I've had numerous nightmares of what it would be like locked inside that cage. It is a nightmare, only it's real. It was real for Alfred Bourgeois.
They did not care about my brother at all. The law says that you are innocent until proven guilty. My brother had never had chance. He never had rights, visitation from family or his kid, or even the right to communicate by telephone or mail. My brother lost our mother, our sister, and younger brothers while incarcerated and was not allowed to call us or come to their funeral. We had to communicate through his attorney to give him the bad news. Now you tell me, who is the real monsters? There is a case that happened maybe 2 years ago. Christopher Watts killed his wife and his 2 kids and threw the kids in an oil tank. Yet he's allowed to communicate with his family and friends. My brother was a Black American male, and we all know what rights we have. Everyone that could have said something positive about my brother, the prosecutor subpoenaed them so that they could not go into the courtroom when they knew that they would never use these people from the beginning on the behalf of my brother. His attorney allowed that. It seemed to me that they had something to hide because he never was given a fair trial. Here is one example of what they did. They put his 6-year-old daughter, Aphrodisia, on the stand and asked her, "Why did your daddy do all these good things for you?" She replied by saying, "To make himself look good." Now you know that any kid would have said, "Because my daddy loved me." The prosecutor had her to lie to make their case look good against her father. This is the system that we live in. When you can teach a 6-year-old to lie. My brother loved his kids and family. He would never hurt anyone. Before my brother's execution, I was able to go visit my brother in prison. I was able to talk to one of the prisoner guard. He informed me that my brother was one of his best inmates. The only problem that they had in the beginning with him when he first came to the prison, he wanted permission to talk to his kids and family. And if he could not do that, he would figure out a way to do that. He was so happy to see me. The first thing that he said was, "Man, I've been waiting for this for 19 years. The next thing that he asked me was how my kids and family doing. I was so shocked to see that he was in such good spirit. He said to me, "I do not care what they do me, as long as I know that my kids are doing well." In the beginning, I did not know what I was going to say to my brother. I had not seen him in 19 years, but his spirit lifted me up. We talked for 7 hours. I never got up one time to use the restroom. or drink a cup of water or eat. I did realize at that time it was his spirit that came out of him into me. We talk about everything. He was full of joy and happiness. I never seen a person so happy. The next day was his execution. I did not want to go because I did not want that to be stuck in the back of my head. It was a Friday, and I was leaving home that day of his execution. At that time, I was at the airport, and he was able to call from his phone in his jail cell. I believe that they give him a phone for 24 hours of his execution to call his kids and family. And he said to me, man, I never got a chance to talk to my sister-in-law, Anita. Can you get us on three-way? And I did. They talked for about 15 minutes and the phone dropped call. Every 15 minutes, the phone would drop a call. So then he called me back and he asked me, are you coming to my execution today? He made it sound like as if he was going to a party. The truthful thing is he was going to a heavenly party. My brother was so happy. I just never seen him that happy at all. That was when I realized that he had made peace with God. He told me that he will forgive everybody for what they done to him. Also the ones who was going to take his life that day. He said, brother, I'm very tired. It really doesn't matter. I am happy that this day have come. If they give me an opportunity to have a few minutes of breath left, I will ask God to forgive them because they do not know what they do. He said to tell my family not to worry about me. I am going home to be with my Savior, my mom, my brother, and my sister. He said, love you, brothers. Brother forever. Goodbye.
Hello? His grandpa, how you doing? Say hello. Hello. Hello, how you doing? How old you are? How old you are? 5.
I know, guys, the phone's probably, it hangs up we got about 10 seconds. There's anything anybody wants to say before it hangs up. 5 seconds. 4.
Love you. Love you.
Dad.
So my Uncle Lloyd sent these ashes God, I can't imagine how hard this was for him. But he wrote on the box, and it says, "Bless you, Brother Alfred. Love you, brother. I promise we will not. I promise we will get justice for you. Love you, brother. Love you." Okay. So we're gonna open these. Finally. After 18 and a half years. I got myself together. Trembling. This is just something that no child should have to experience. Oh gosh. Oh man. It's just not fair. My father did not deserve this. He was a good father. He was a wonderful dad. And he did not deserve this. He was innocent. And he was tortured and tormented for 18 and a half years by his own country, by my own country. I can't even live there anymore. I can't even step foot in that country after what they did to my father. He did not deserve this. He was innocent. And this is the result of it. You guys have seen this on this day, me getting ashes, but this isn't where it began. My father's immediate family, have been suffering and dealing with this type of pain for 18 and a half years. And this is how my father's story ended. It's inhumane. It's unjust. And there needs to be repercussions. There needs to be.
The attorney that brought me to the airport, me and him had a long talk. And I talk about all the stuff that they did wrong. And I told him, let me tell you what I told Rick. I said, Rick, let me explain something to you. I said, you was a lawyer, right? He told me, yeah. I said, when you got sworn in, you swore that you would do whatever it takes to protect. I said, that's what you done, right? He said, yes. I said, well, let me tell you something. I said, if you knew that was something that you were supposed to do and you didn't do it, you just as guilty as the prosecutor. I said, because that means you got paid for something that you didn't even do. And, he looked at me when I told him that. And he told me that he started telling me, let me tell you what he told me. He wanted me to know that he was a brother, but he looked white. All right. So he wanted me to know that he was a brother. But then I figured out once I got out the car to go to the plane, I figured out why he kept us saying that. So then what I did to make sure that I was right about it, I called him about 2 months after, because I kept in touch with him a while. He said, well, he said, what you told me was so true. He said, there was a lot of things that we should have done.
How can they ever give back what has been taken away? How could they not look at the bigger picture? How could they move forward with a capital execution with all the holes present? At minimal, could you not do a retrial? Could you not had just did a mistrial or something? How could this happen? And the world are hearing these malicious things that this poor man did. No. Imagine your family member. Imagine your loved one. In fact, you know what? Any men watching this, imagine. Any fathers watching this, imagine if someone if your child died accidentally, still traumatic, no less traumatic, but if they died accidentally and you were accused of that child's murder, if you were called a torturer, if it was said that you molested this child, imagine for 18 years. And guess what? Even after you are left in a prison cell to sit like a dog, knowing that the child that you were trying to protect is dead and that you failed, you did not succeed in protecting her, because whether accident or not, she died. That's how he felt during his final hours. That's how he told me he felt. But imagine trying to protect her, and for 18 years, you are called a torturer and a rapist, even though there is evidence available. Imagine for 18 years or 6,570 days, and then you're executed, and not at the hands of your country, at the hands of the United States of America. You are executed unjustly executed. And that's not it. After your execution, you know what? He doesn't know. Thank God he doesn't have to see the things that I'm seeing. He doesn't have to witness what I'm seeing. Thank God he is finally at peace. My poor father is finally at peace. But imagine just Googling his name, the vicious things that I have to read. People celebrating his death. People saying, like on the Wizard of Oz, the witch is dead. Like, they're celebrating him. They're happy. They're praying that he suffered when he died. Can you imagine?
This is how I perceived this. People put Jesus Christ to death. A man who performed miracles. He made the blind see. He made the deaf hear, and he healed the lepers. Who are they to judge? Let Christ Jesus take care of all who had a hand in taking Alfred's life. They are going to Judgment Day. He has already had his Judgment Day. They are going to Judgment Day one day with the proper authority, Jesus Christ. The way I perceive it, a life is a life. One who taketh one is just as unjust as those that perceive the individual has taken one.
I think, of course, I wasn't there. I would have loved to seen him at some point in time, but living overseas and being a merchant seaman and traveling around the world, it's kind of hard to, to be able to come down and say, okay, I'll plan a visit and go and see him with the schedule that a jail have. I've never been to a prison to visit anyone. But unfortunately, it was sad that, his life was taken. And it's also sad that he was so close to the change of commander-in-chief. What could have perhaps made a big difference, or perhaps have given him more time in jail to, still have the opportunity to share a phone call with people that loved him. And as sad as it is, just saying what I was saying, I think that he suffered enough. I'm not the judge. But 18 and a half years in prison is extremely a long time. And he's sadly missed. I pray for him each and every day. But I do believe that the system failed and they persecuted someone that is and was innocent. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's mine. This is the United States of America, freedom of speech. So I'm glad that I'm able to share that with whatever viewer views this video. Saying what I was saying, I think our system needs to change, and I think our system needs to analyze things better, but first they need to stop executing people. Because, again, I'm against capital punishment, and I just feel that he suffered enough, and taking his life was not the answer or the solution to anything. He was in prison, and that itself was enough. But, however, he's gone now. Rest his soul. I pray for him. Sadly missed. I always love him because he was a friend of mine. He's the father of my niece, and I hope that, that he's at peace now, in a place where they can no longer judge or execute. That no longer has grip on him. So with that being said, I'd just like to conclude by saying I apologize to anyone if I offended them by my words. But I want to say first and foremost that to my niece, I love you, Bethany, and I hope that, at some point in time you can find peace. I don't think I could ever find peace with someone being executed when it was not, something that had to be done. He was already in prison, so that in itself was already punishment. So to each his own. Let's just pray for him now and hope and pray that, one day, God will, we can all be together in everlasting paradise.
You talked a little bit about how you've experienced depression since, learning all the details. What's really so devastating about your story is it's like you're trying to, prove your dad's innocence after he's already gone.
Yeah. I was listening to some of the episodes of your podcast, and I remember just thinking, God, I wish my dad could be the one telling this story, not me. It has been so depressing. We've been fighting so hard, Amanda, so hard. Over the past 2.5 years, I'm probably underestimating this number. We've reached out to over 800 media outlets throughout the state of Texas, throughout the state of Louisiana, and throughout the state of Indiana. Reporters, we've reached out to 200 to 300 civil rights attorneys. The one that was actually the most disappointing was Ben Crump, whose secretary was so uncompassionate and just so rude. We've reached out to so many organizations like the ACLU. We've reached out to NAACP, to BLM. We reached out to the Innocence Project, who replied back by stating they could not take my father's case because it was posthumous, which, I mean, isn't that more of a reason to fight? We've reached out to even celebrities who have organizations for wrongfully convicted. Jay-Z, Meek Mill, John Legend. We've reached out to Van Jones, to Don Lemon, President Biden and Kamala. Aside from you actually giving us the opportunity to share this story and to listen, I feel like for the most part, we're in the same place.
Wow.
And that really stings and it really hurts.
So you say us. Who is it besides you that's trying to reveal the truth about your dad?
My husband, oh gosh, he's been my rock through all of this. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not ashamed to say this, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but there's been moments where I've even had suicidal thoughts because this is just so hard. It's so many layers and it's so hard to just process, and obviously I'm not going to do that. I have sought counseling, and I'm not going to do that because if I'm not here, then my father will never get justice. But my husband has been my rock, and he has been helping me through this. Also, my Uncle Lloyd has been a huge support. He's not so much involved with the media and reaching out to people, but if I need someone to talk to about the case or about what happened, he always gives me an ear to listen, as well as my aunt, Anita, who supports this drastically.
Why do you think there's such resistance to caring about your dad's case?
Honestly, I believe because of the horrible things that are being said in the media. When, we created this website, alfredbourgeois.com. We try to promote it as best we can to share the truth with people. And also, I believe the main reason is because my father was an inmate. And in people's mind, they believe that, if you're an inmate, you must be guilty. You must have committed a horrible crime, when that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't think people realize, and I am not a death penalty abolitionist, but I don't think people realize how many wrongful convictions actually occur. This is terrifying to me because although there are people who commit horrible crimes, there are also people who are wrongfully convicted who did not commit horrible crimes. They're in there because of prosecutor misconduct. That's the reason, because of fabricated evidence and perjury. And these people are dying and no one cares about them.
One of the things that sort of stays with me is how weird it is to have to keep living on your life like a normal person when you have something so big inside of you that you're carrying as well. How do you carry this burden with you as you're also just being a person, living your day-to-day life?
I'm just trying to fight, and I'm just being hopeful that this case is exposed and that my father gets justice. The fight for justice is what makes it all worth it. We spend hours trying to get the website together, hours reaching out to these reporters. But imagine having to relive it, all again, relive it. Just think about the suffering, think about what was done. And it's hard. Every single day is hard. My husband is actually a computer engineer, and when he gives a report, they phrase it as the execution of this test, the execution of this test. And just the word execution traumatizes me. Every time I hear it, it's like a trigger. Oh my gosh, sometimes we're watching a cooking show like Gordon Ramsay, and they talk about a dish. Oh, the dish was executed perfectly. And, I could be fine. And then that moment, just all these memories come flooding back, and I can't escape them. They just never leave.
I'm so sorry. And I completely understand. When I hear any people speaking Italian, they could be saying something totally inconsequential, and I'll just be a part of me is nope, I'm not back in prison. Please no.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Do you feel more lost today, 20 years later, or more lost as the 17-year-old who just lost her dad because he was arrested?
I believe I feel more lost today. I'm older, I'm wiser, and when I really understand the fabrications, this rape allegation that never took place, this abuse allegation that never took place, this blunt force trauma allegation that never took place, I'm confused because to me, the law is supposed to be put into place to prevent things like this from occurring. But here we are living it. I'm so disappointed because I expected people to care more. And if they don't understand the case, we created a website. We have a Facebook page. I expect them to go and to read because I'm constantly posting about this, but they just decide to believe what's in the media with no regard to actually really trying to put an effort to discovering the truth behind this case. And that disappoints me. It's heart-wrenching. And sometimes it's hard to understand why. Like sometimes I will see a media article and I get so angry because it's an article about, the cute little French bulldog who's mischievous, who got adopted 3 times, or, ooh, this is what the Kardashians are wearing today. And I'm thinking, my fucking father died and he suffered and no one cares. The media outlets, they don't care. The reporters, they don't care. I mean, it's just, it's malicious.
When you think about just the way that society functions, what do you think is going wrong? Why do you think that people care more about what the Kardashians are wearing than the fact that an innocent man may have been executed?
I believe that people like to think that there is a monster, that there is always a monster involved in the picture, and they're trying to find the right person to entitle that word to. And also, I think that they're just really naive to think that this system is really for the people when that's not true. I mean, it's not. I think in their mind, they don't believe that a person could actually be wrongfully convicted. And I believe that the media is at fault for a lot of this because they have the opportunity to do what their job roles or investigative journalism. Do your job.
It's hard to see a way out, especially because on the one hand, if your father were still alive, it'd be like, okay, at the very least, I'm striving for something to get him out of prison. And today it's the thing that you're serving is his memory and the memory of him as being a father who was good to you and good to your sisters. Do you think that you're going to succeed in the end?
I feel like I have to. I don't have a choice, I'm often asked, what do you want out of this, Bethany? That's a very easy question for me. I want my father exonerated and I want his truth exposed. I'll be honest, I want all those who were responsible for it. I want the perjury, the prosecution, the defense, the judge, the prison who denied us contact. I want it exposed and I want them to be reprimanded. I want this so-called justice system to be ameliorated, because this is happening again to innocent people. And more than anything, I want my father to be remembered as a martyr and not as a monster, as these media reports continue to state.
Like so many potential wrongful convictions, Alfred Bourgeois' case is one without definitive proof of innocence. But it does remain a case with enough compelling evidence that were his trial held today, his fate could have been altered. Alfred's story reminds us to be conscious of our biases, of who, at first glance, we declare to be the monsters among us.
If you want to learn more about Alfred Bourgeois' case, visit alfredbourgeois.com.
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Chaplain Michael Zusman, and I'm the founder of L'chaim, Jews Against the Death Penalty. Last year, I sent a letter to Mr. Alfred Bourgeois of blessed memory, When we found out that he got an execution date, we sent a letter of apology on behalf of our government for what we were intending to do to him on the second night of Hanukkah of all days. And then, as time went on, I found out that Alfred Bourgeois, of blessed memory, was innocent. I found out from his beloved daughter and family. I myself lived in Vancouver for some time and am connected with that community as well. And so, in solidarity with you, Bethany, and all your family, this one goes out to your father. I felt drawn to a certain song called I'll Fly Away. You mentioned that he liked gospel. Well, when I pulled out that song today, I saw that it's by somebody also named Alfred. Alfred E. Bromley, 1929. I don't believe in coincidences. I'll Fly Away by Alfred, for Alfred, a blessed memory, who flies with you now. Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away when the shadows of this life have grown. I'll fly away like a bird from prison bars has flown. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a land where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Oh, how glad and happy when we meet again. I'll fly away. No more cold iron shackles on my feet. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away, Mr. Alfred, when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Zichrono livracha, his memory for a blessing. Amen.